I'm Lou, and I wanted to talk to you today as a midwife, an educator, and I'm always aspiring to be an empowerer as well. So I wanted to talk to you really about how we can take care of the carers. We're very good at empowering women and families, but we also need to empower, nourish, nurture, and thrive as professionals as well, as colleagues, as parents, sisters, brothers. We all have our professional and personal lives as well. So it's really wonderful, and thank you as well for giving me some time to speak today. So I kind of wanted to start by talking about the impact of stress, and when stress, which can sometimes be positive and good, actually becomes something toxic and a disease. So as you can see from this slide, which is the Yerkes-Dodson curve, there's varying levels of stress, and a little bit of stress can be actually something positive and actually help performance. But when stimulus stress is either not enough or is too great, it actually lowers performance. And when your stress level enters this red zone, then that's really that zone of being burnt out. And this can be the point of no return. And so really alarm bells need to start ringing when you're in this amber zone of feeling overloaded. Because once you're in the red zone, it can be a very quick and downward slope to disease. And actually being ill and stress-related illnesses are actually in there many. And it can be physical and it can be mental, and they can affect not just you, but your family as well. And I think if you get to this stage, really, you need to be stopping. And I don't mean having a relaxing weekend and, I just need a really good lie-in, or 2 days off at the same time, or just having, a week off on holiday. I think you actually need to be, receiving help and giving yourself time to heal properly and to become well again. And this may not be the case for everyone, but I speak from experience because I had a period in my professional life where I was burnt out, and I didn't just get to breaking point, I did actually break. And recovering and regaining my confidence and my belief in myself took a long, long time. So I wanted to always think about different things that motivate us as well, before I move into some things that we can do to try and promote our own well-being, but also that of our colleagues. So in an ideal world, everyone would be intrinsically motivated. And so this is when motivation is sourced by joy and passion and that sense of doing something worthwhile and amazing that's making a difference. And I think Fatima and Sam, that's what they were talking about. They're going in to make, for their colleagues, and because they know, they're needed, and they're going to be able to, help people, have their babies healthy, positively and safely, and have that impact on the world. But our world is not actually ideal. So we do sometimes, in our teams, we may get some colleagues who are a little bit more extrinsically motivated. So they don't really enjoy the job as much, and they're here to pay the mortgage because they have to be, they don't want to get sacked. And it's more fear of punishment or fear of something else that's motivating them. But I actually think because of the pandemic, that midwives and other healthcare professionals are actually surviving and being motivated because of addiction. And by that, I actually mean that it's an unhealthy and a toxic approach and to motivation, because they're continuing to work really despite being exhausted and maybe being needed elsewhere. And this is a really awful conflict to deal with, like Fatima and Sam spoke about. And a beautiful midwife friend of mine told me how she's not coping very well at all. But she said she's actually working every shift possible and doing extras because she knows it's going to help her colleagues and it's helping the women in the family. And this gives her a sense of purpose and reward when she's actually feeling rubbish. However, she also said it was a good way to distract herself from her own personal problems and those of her family and her children. Because the impact of the pandemic isn't just about loss of loved ones. It's also the loss of normal ways, being able to see your family, hug them, children being able to play with their friends as usual. So in the long run, I think this kind of addictive motivation is going to be very damaging, and it can contribute to burnout. And like I said, you know, there are some people who will be very much in that intrinsic zone, some in that extrinsic zone. But I do worry that there's more people being driven really by this need to continue because what they don't want to face the reality. So I just want to make it clear that there are things that we can do to maybe try and manage this situation a little bit. Because if we're honest, no one would actually choose this way of life. I don't imagine anyone is living their best life right now. We're all just doing the best that we can. And we know it might not be the best way, but it's the best that you can manage. So I wanted to start with this really simple message, and that is that self-care is self-love. It is not selfish and it is not optional. You must prioritize yourself, which can feel very alien when you're normally the one who is caring for everybody else. And Sam spoke about pouring from an empty cup. And for a little while, we can all keep going. We can pour from an empty cup, but at some point, we're going to collapse. It's going to be, you know, that's it. We can't possibly pour anymore. And you don't really know when that's going to happen. You can't gauge how long you can last. So I think it's really important that we, even though we're used to caring for everybody else, we actually take time to care for ourselves. So some ways to do this, I think, is to be true to yourself and have integrity and own your feelings. Because when we ignore how we feel or how others feel, and we try to convince everyone and ourselves that everything is fine, it's fine, there's actually a toxic positivity that develops. And this can be really damaging to yourself, but also to others if you work within a team or you're a leader or a role model. Because when you're trying to convince yourselves and everyone else that it's all fine, when it clearly isn't, then you become dismissive. So you might be seen as being out of touch and even uncaring. I also wanted you to think about acknowledging your feelings by using something like a check-in tool like this. And this is one you might just want to do yourself on a regular basis, or doing it at the start of a shift with your teams. And it's really quick and it's an easy reminder. It's easy to remember, and it's a really simple thing to understand, I think. So if you come on shift and you say, I'm feeling really blue today, it's letting everyone know that you might need a little bit of TLC, because, we're very good at coping and looking like everything's fine, but under the surface, it might not be. But also, if you're feeling green and you share that with your colleagues, that may actually give others a boost. And I think it's really important to note that you can actually feel all of these colours and these emotions, sometimes even in one day. But again, you just need to acknowledge that and and acknowledge your feelings without judgment. And also, when you're being honest with yourself or trying to be honest with others and genuinely ask them how they are, I think it's really important that we listen with fascination. And we do this so often with women and families. We make them feel so special and like they're the only person we're talking to and interested in, even though we might actually be really, really busy. So please listen to yourself and to others with the same level of fascination. Another thing I think you can do is small acts of kindness, and both of you will benefit from this. You feel good by doing a selfless act and possibly making somebody else's day better. But they also feel good because they've been noticed, they're feeling valued, and then they may actually go on and do acts of kindness for somebody else, and then they may for somebody else. And so from one small pebble of acknowledgement, a really large ripple effect can start. And one way we encouraged to actually do this at a recent Midwifery Ambassadors event was to encourage midwives to act. And by act, I mean to appreciate someone, and directly and in the moment, and then to also commend them to others and share with other people how amazing that person was, or what they did that was so amazing that you thought was special and helpful. And when you're also appreciating them, in that moment, also encourage them to then tell others, and so that they teach others potentially about what it was that they did or what was so special. And it just becomes an infectious, positive act. And I think it's really important to be your own best friend. Be kind to yourself and speak to yourself as if you were talking to your best friend or a loved one. Because if you were struggling to climb a mountain and your best friend or somebody who loved you was actually at the top looking down on you, and they could see that you were crying, or that they could see that you were distressed and really struggling, they wouldn't tell you that you were being pathetic. or, speak to you negatively or put you down in any way. What they'd do is they'd help you up and they'd speak kindly and gently to you. So please be careful with how you respond to your own emotions and thoughts, and don't be dismissive and don't be negative, because you're always listening, and you will, if you only speak negatively, that's how you're going to feel. It reinforces those feelings. And just to start wrapping up, I wanted to reflect on how wellness and thriving can really impact upon resilience and retention, and consequently the development of strong midwifery roots. And in turn, this, better resilience, better retention, and better wellness from staff can then impact on intrinsic motivation, and that affects our performance and our moments of truth. And for us as midwives, our moments of truth are these safe, positive, and magical experiences for women, babies, and families whilst they're in the maternity care system. So really, it's a win-win situation. You feel better, more resilient, your workforce is healthier, and the care that the women are receiving is better as well. And then this is my very last slide. And I'd just like to end with a little reflection about how midwives are like swans. And swans are calm and graceful above the water, but beneath the water, they're kicking their legs frantically, trying to stay afloat. And this is really good for, women and families, because it helps to keep people calm. But this isn't necessarily good if you continue to be like a swan in your personal life. And when you don't acknowledge your feelings, but instead you choose to glide serenely around like you have no concerns at all. But they also say midwives have the heart of a lion, and I think we need to be more lion. So lions move in silence, often concealed, but when they roar, it's so powerful it can be heard miles away. So don't be a swan, be a lion. Be powerfully silent, be gentle and quietly whisper, but when you need to be heard, then roar. And we're really good at hearing and advocating and roaring for women and families, but we need to make sure we also advocate and roar for ourselves as well. So that really was all I wanted to share. And, I could have said a lot more, but we've got to keep, we've got to have some guidance with times. But I do hope this has given you some things to reflect on, and maybe some small tips that you can actually take and start to use yourself or with your colleagues. So thank you.
Thanks for watching this video from the Maternity and Midwifery Forum. For more expert opinion and analysis, hit the button below to subscribe.